Hello and welcome to the 9th Act for Share discussion programme. Today's topic is music. Music is unusual among all human activities for both its ubiquity and its antiquity. No known human culture now or any time in the recorded past lacked music. Some of the oldest physical artefacts found in human and proto-human excavation sites are musical instruments. Whenever humans come together for any reason, music is there. Even more so in non-industrialised countries than in modern Western societies, music is and was part of the fabric of everyday life. In our recent culture, it's been traditional for older people to loathe and despise the music favoured by the young. In their turn, the young have sought radical and iconoclastic music to distinguish themselves from their elders. Have the technological changes to the production, delivery and consumption of music in the last 60 years changed this polarised situation? Are tastes changing across the board, with both young and old enjoying unprecedented access to music from all times and places? How will this affect the way that people interact with music and musicians? Music also links us to our past, directly evoking memories of times, places and emotions. Will today's young people treasure their musical memories in the same way as their elders? Has there been a change in the meaning and function of music in a broader cultural sense? Or has it remained broadly the same in spite of changing technology? And what about the linking of music and fashion? Has it always existed? Or is it only recently that image has become more important than musical content?
My memories of music go back to my early childhood. I was born in 1954, working class family in the north of England, and things were very different, of course. And one of the earliest things I remember is that even though, my family background was quite working class, there was no money or anything, but both sets of grandparents, both their homes had a piano.
From my point of view, I think the most interesting difference is, firstly, that for those of us in our 60s, we had particular genres of music. For me, I really was only interested in music in the 60s and then music in the 70s. And rock and roll and protest songs, and that was it. And also the fact that we used to listen to firstly 45s, then LPs, then albums, and they would be ones that we went out to buy, and it was a big thing. Now everybody just seems to be compiling a lot of their own music.
I've talked to, because I was born in England, but I moved away when I was a kid and grew up in Canada.
Yeah.
And but talking to a lot of having moved back here and working with a lot of musicians, people so roughly my age and sort of up to your age, they basically they confirm what you just said. There was a period of time in England, if you wanted to learn an instrument, every child had free lessons.
Yeah.
And there was a window, there was a period, it had never existed before, it came along, and then by the time sort of Thatcher hit in the 80s,
yes,
everything got cut.
Everything got
totally. And it's been gone ever since.
Yes.
The roles that music plays don't seem to have changed that much to me. The form you consume it in has changed. It's become more kind of flexible. And also the kind of technology of the instruments that actually make the music. I think that's something we haven't really discussed.
And then you could go to your local record shop and they have all of the booths where you go and listen to the music. After that, having CDs and stuff like that coming along, you thought, wow, the music was even better. And yet, at the same time, for some obscure reason, people now seem to prefer going back to good old vinyl.
I mean, the only thing maybe you could question is, does complete ubiquity of choice mean that things are kind of less precious in some way, maybe?
Well, I think it's much more individual and creative. I mean, so that now you can, both my daughters, create their own music. They put their own soundtracks together.
Yes.
They then go and take it with them if they're going on a journey or they're listening on the thing or they're going to a party, and they've compiled stuff. The difference being they haven't compiled it all from one genre, but they've compiled it over the last 50 or 60 years.
The local music shop, Brotherton's in Bishop Auckland, had not only the Threepenny Opera box set, but also Mahagoni. And I'd seen it there every time. I'd been going in for years buying bits of like sheet music for piano, or Lilac series, easy classics, or music for pleasure, classical recordings, and so on. I'd seen them. What on earth's that? They must have bought them years before. They'd been gathering dust. They must have been absolutely fed up with the sight of them. And of course, I saved up and went in and bought them.
I'm interested in how drugs have influenced music and how different drugs at different times. So you would always have a connection between, say, jazz and marijuana and other things. That alcohol fueled an awful lot of the 60s and the rock and roll music. And of course, speed was the drug of choice for people doing mod music. The punk music with speed. Then you had the rise of LSD with all of that sort of laid back and sort of very stuff from the late 60s and 70s.
So for any of you there who are familiar with the notation software, Sibelius software, or the Finale software and all these things that just did not exist in those days, right? So
and if you really decided you wanted to fundamentally change something, you had to, once you'd done it, you had to write the whole damn thing out all over again. And
so it's
very laborious.
So is it like fashion, that everything goes in circles and then comes back on itself? Or are we really progressing? Because to me, what was a very simple, basic rite of passage, and it was part of my generation, what I listened to and how I listened to it, now seems to have been overtaken by technology.
If you're talking about kind of defining yourself or your little social group through allegiance to a particular kind of music or a particular style, I think that still goes on a lot, doesn't it?
I mean, I remember back in the 70s and 80s in sort of left-wing parties, somebody would always bring an instrument and then you'd all start singing your favourite left-wing songs. Do people ever make music in parties nowadays?
But I think maybe that's a kind of old person's attitude, which is a bit condescending to young people and says, well, you can't really enjoy music the same way we did because you've got so much choice, it kind of can't mean as much to you. Whereas I think music's a kind of emotional thing, isn't it? And you respond to it emotionally. And young people especially, I think, you're talking about when you were young people especially kind of find a definition of themselves somehow through music and through the kind of musical culture. So I think that still all goes on.
And the second half was the very first ever public performance of the newly formed London Gay Symphony Orchestra, doing Swan Lake and they Prelude and a piece that one of their members had written. And so I got involved with that. And that got me writing again, really. That was the start of it. And it was just nice to be... I mean, people ask why a gay orchestra. Well, there are always a lot of gay people in the music world. Of course they were, but it was also very closeted. And you didn't have... there was a lot of hypocrisy around it.
So you don't have to be a musician. You don't have to be musically trained anymore, which I think is democratising, obviously.
Yes.
But it also means, of course, that you get tons more not very good things, tons more imitations, tons more kind of derivative stuff. But I don't think that would stop anyone who's genuinely interested and creative in music wouldn't necessarily dampen their creativity in any way. So it can only be a good thing, I think.
Now it doesn't matter what you want. If you want to write in a certain style or be as eccentric as you want, or postmodern and as you want, you can reference as many past styles as you want, and it doesn't matter. It's all acceptable. And this is just a terrific time. So I've started writing again.
And so I think now you've started to get a kind of opposite phenomenon where people are going to kind of Africa and searching around in market stores looking for tapes that were made in 1962 by some totally obscure guy who only ever made 10 copies of this cassette.
Yes, and
it was released, and now it's become a kind of precious object. It seems to me like none of this is any different from what it was 50, 60 years ago. It's all exactly the same, because music's a business, isn't it? Yeah. It's about commercial selling music a lot of the time.
Yeah, but in the eyes it was, starting out, people were getting the sheet music so they could play the popular tune at home on the piano or on the guitar.
That happened in a way before even the kind of technological revolution, didn't it? World music became kind of fashionable late 70s, early 80s. And that was to do with, I think that's got a lot to do with immigration, multiculturalism sort of coming up. So people are much more aware of other people's musical styles.
It started happening on the
and easy travel.
But even before that, you had the fascination with Indian music, in particular with the Beatles, and then Yehudi Menuhin duetting with Ravi Shankar and so on.
I do really feel like there's this thing, because music is a vocation, it's a calling. If it's there in you never. It's one of these things. I wrestle with this constantly because we never make any money, right?
Yes.
But so it's interesting how you always get dragged back in, because I tried at various times in my life to leave, but I never could.
No. Yeah.
The music I hear now, modern music, it seems perfectly to reflect the modern world. It's just full of horrible industrial noise, a kind of strange kind of collage of splattering of kind of sounds on things.
Well, interestingly, last week we went to a theatre programme about Bakunin's 200th anniversary of his birth, and they ended up singing the Internationale.
Yes.
And somebody turned around and said, we always used to sing that at the end of parties, and we used to have a whole range of radical, left-wing songs that everybody would know and sing. And now you hardly ever, since the collapse of the wall and communism has been tainted with Stalinism, you never sort of really hear anything like that, all of those rousing old revolutionary songs and the red flag and stuff.
So I think one of the things that's helpful about this, Peter, if I might make a point here, is that you seem to be someone who's always fought against social injustice, and I think we're very similar in certain ways. Playing music is part of that in some ways. Or making music is a part of our way of confronting reality and participating in society.